She just wanted to check her balance. But what he saw next left him speechless. The old woman's hands trembled as she held a small piece of paper, her eyes scanning the numbers again and again like they might suddenly change if she looked hard enough. Around her, the bank buzzed with quiet conversations, clicking keyboards and impatient footsteps. But she stood frozen, as if time had chosen to pause only for her. She stepped forward slowly, her worn-out sandals barely making a sound against the polished floor, and whispered to the teller, her voice fragile yet steady with hope. She said she just wanted to see her balance, and somewhere behind her a man in an expensive suit let out a soft, mocking laugh that would soon echo louder in his own conscience than he ever expected. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness still exists in this world, that people deserve second chances, and that even the smallest acts of humanity can change lives, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The woman's name was Sakina. She had lived a life that most people in that bank could not even imagine. Her face carried the lines of decades of sacrifice, her hands rough from years of labor, and her clothes, though clean, told stories of hardship. She had once been a school cleaner, waking up before dawn every day, sweeping classrooms so children could walk into a fresh start. Her husband had passed away years ago, leaving her alone with a young daughter and no financial support. Life had not been kind, but Sakina had never allowed bitterness to take root in her heart. She raised her daughter with whatever she could earn, washing dishes in homes, cleaning streets, stitching torn clothes late into the night under a flickering bulb. There were days when she slept hungry so her daughter could eat. There were nights when she cried quietly so her daughter would never see her pain. And there were years, long, endless years, when hope was the only thing she owned. Her daughter Aisha grew up watching all of this. She studied under dim light, borrowed books, and walked miles to school every day. But she carried her mother's strength within her. She worked hard, earned scholarships, and eventually became a nurse in a city hospital. For Sakina, this was more than success. It was a miracle. It was proof that every sacrifice had meant something. Even after Aisha began earning, Sakina refused to stop working. She believed in dignity, in earning with her own hands, no matter how little it brought. But Aisha insisted on helping. Secretly opening a bank account in her mother's name and depositing money every month, Sakina didn't fully understand the system of banks, cards, and balances, but she trusted her daughter. On that particular day, Aisha had called her and gently told her to visit the bank and check her balance. There was something in her voice, a quiet excitement, a softness, that made Sakina curious. So she wore her best clothes, wrapped her faded shawl around her shoulders, and made her way to the bank, holding the small account paper like it was something sacred. The man who laughed behind her was named Farhan. He was everything Sakina was not. Young, wealthy, confident, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Sakina had earned in a year. He was a regular at the bank, known by staff, respected for his business success. But beneath his polished exterior was a certain arrogance, a belief that money defined worth. When he saw Sakina standing at the counter, struggling to explain what she needed, something in him found it amusing. He leaned toward the person beside him and whispered something sarcastic, his lips curling into a smirk. To him, she was just another poor, uneducated woman who didn't belong in a place like this. Sakina, unaware of the laughter behind her, finally handed over her paper to the teller and repeated softly that she just wanted to know how much money she had. The teller nodded politely and typed in her account details. For a brief moment, the teller's expression changed, just slightly, but enough to suggest surprise. Then she printed a slip and handed it over. Sakina took the paper with trembling hands. Numbers stared back at her, more digits than she had ever seen associated with her name. Her eyes widened, her lips parted, but no words came out. She thought there must be a mistake. This couldn't be hers. This couldn't belong to someone who had counted coins to buy bread. Behind her, Farhan noticed the reaction. His curiosity grew. He stepped a little closer, his earlier amusement now mixed with interest. The teller, seeing Sakina's confusion, gently explained the balance to her again, pointing to the figure, assuring her that it was correct. It was then that Farhan caught a glimpse of the screen, and the smile faded from his face. The number was not small, it wasn't even average. It was a significant amount, far more than he had expected. Enough to demand respect, enough to challenge his assumptions, enough to silence him completely. His mind raced. How could this woman, dressed in worn clothes, carrying herself with such humility, have this kind of money? He looked at her again, but this time, he saw something different. He saw dignity. He saw a story he didn't understand. Sakina, still overwhelmed, asked if she could withdraw a small amount. Her voice shook, not because she was afraid, but because she was still trying to process what she had just seen. The teller helped her, guiding her through the steps patiently. Farhan stood there, unusually quiet. Something inside him had shifted. The laughter that had come so easily earlier now felt heavy, almost shameful. He watched as Sakina carefully placed the cash into her old purse, as if handling something fragile and precious. For the first time in a long while, Farhan felt small. After completing her transaction, Sakina turned to leave. As she walked past him, she paused for a moment, not because she knew who he was, but because she felt his gaze. Their eyes met briefly. There was no anger in hers, no judgment. Just a quiet, calm presence that made Farhan uncomfortable in a way he couldn't explain. He wanted to say something, an apology perhaps, but the words didn't come. Later that day, Farhan couldn't shake the image from his mind. The woman, her trembling hands, the balance on the screen. It stayed with him through meetings, through conversations, through the noise of his busy life. For the first time, he began to question something deeper. How often had he judged people without knowing their stories? Meanwhile, Sakina returned home and called her daughter. Her voice carried both confusion and joy as she told her about the money. Aisha laughed softly and finally revealed the truth. Over the years, she had been saving, not just her salary, but bonuses, gifts, and extra shifts. Everything quietly placed into her mother's account. She had wanted to give her mother a sense of security, a future free from worry. Sakina cried, not because of the money, but because of the love behind it. Days later, Farhan found himself returning to the bank at the same time, almost hoping to see Sakina again. And when he did, something unexpected happened. This time he didn't laugh. He stepped forward, greeted her respectfully, and offered to help her with anything she needed. Sakina smiled gently, accepting his kindness without question, without suspicion. To her, people were simply people, some kind, some not, but always capable of change. And in that moment, Farhan realized something profound. Wealth was not just about numbers on a screen. It was about character, humility, and the ability to see others as equals. Sakina had more of that wealth than he ever had. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment to hit like, share it with someone who needs a reminder of humanity, and subscribe for more stories that truly matter. As time passed, Farhan began to change in small but meaningful ways. He treated people differently, more respectfully, more patiently. He started noticing things he had ignored before. The effort behind simple work, the dignity in struggle, the quiet strength of ordinary lives. And it all began with a single moment in a bank, when a woman said she just wanted to see her balance. Before we reach the end, I have a special request for you. Comment the word kindness below if you believe that no act of respect or compassion is ever wasted. Because sometimes, the richest lessons come from the poorest assumptions. Sakina never knew how deeply she had impacted Farhan's life. She simply continued living the way she always had, with humility, gratitude, and quiet strength. But for Farhan, that day became a turning point. A moment that stripped away arrogance and replaced it with understanding. And maybe that's how change happens. Not through grand gestures, but through simple human moments that force us to see the world differently. If this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you to look beyond appearances and treat people with kindness, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because stories like this deserve to be heard, and kindness deserves to be spread.